Welcome to the bonus episode of the Artsy Raven with Corey Rosen. So, Corey, what is the secret to working successfully in your role as a writer and host of the Moth Story Slams?
The secret. You want me to give the
Yeah,
secret?
what is the secret?
The one secret. I mean, as a host, I would say here's a good secret for people that are hosting shows or wanting to host shows is while you are the host of the show is not all about you. The show is about the people who are in the show, the performers and the acts that are in that show. So your main job is to create a space, like a safe space or a warm space where both people want to be there and perform, and the audience has this trust that whoever comes up there is going to,
It's performing.
to perform and to do their job. I've been in shows where it's felt rather hostile, where it's like a wacky waka waka host who's all about them, and it's almost like they're insulting the people that are coming up there, and then they notice, like, why don't people want to be in my show? It's because it's your show and they're your backup dancers. And I I think that as a host, like my main job is to maintain the flow of the show. So the way I'll do that is, of course, in a storytelling show, I would tell my own story, not in the nature like to impress the audience of how amazing I am and better than everybody else, but to model it. Here's what you can do up here, and even if the story is just okay, like that's all right. And then creating that space so that anybody that's got a story in them that wants to come up and do that, then they will also come up. And the result of this that I've really noticed that I kind of love is that when the room is like that, when the room is supporting a storyteller and somebody comes up and you see they're a little afraid because they're not a performer. To be a storyteller, you just have to be you. You don't have to be an actor or a performer at all, because you've told stories. Everybody's told stories. But to get on stage in front of 100, 200 people can be intimidating for a lot of people. And I've seen people get up there and go like, oh God, I'm so nervous. And the audience is like, like cheering them on, like making them feel good, like they're doing their job. They're not like razzing them or heckling them. They're cheering for them and they're encouraging them to do their thing. And they're basically like filling up their balloon to like, okay. And then they go into the story and they have us, and we're all connected together. So that's my advice for hosts out there is don't make it about you. Let it be about the space that you create, whatever the feeling that you want to create, so that you invite people to be themselves.
How about being a writer? You're also a writer.
Yeah.
So I've heard a lot of writers tell me about having grit, I think, is the secret to becoming a successful writer, to just keep doing it. That's what I've heard multiple times.
That's certainly part of it. I mean, listen, I'm 47 years old. I just published my first book. And sure, it's been a aspiration of mine my whole life. I haven't centered my entire life around it. I think success can be measured in so many different ways. Like you can work as a writer if you are writing. So if you're a marketing writer, if you're a business writer, if you're a blogger, if you are writing, then you are on the path to doing to that success. If you're being paid to write something, even better. You are a professional writer. If you are writing, columns in magazines or zines. I think that, like you were saying, grit is a good way of putting it, because it's about staying with it and trusting that you have a voice and people want to hear your voice, and not being turned down by rejection. Like when I got my first rejection from publishers, I celebrated them. Like I know that failure is part of everything that I'm going to do. I'm going to get better by failing, by trying and failing. If you haven't failed, you haven't tried. So look forward to getting your first rejection letter. Celebrate it, frame it, whatever. Put it, say, don't crumple it up and feel like a failure and burn it. Being rejected is good. That means you're doing the right thing, and try again. There's we live in a world that needs content right now. So if you have a part of you that says, I would like to write, there are people that want you to write for them.
Hmm.
I strongly and firmly believe that there's an audience out there. There's a website, there's a magazine, there's a column, there's a TV show, whatever it is. So expand your vision of what that could be. If you
Yes.
want to be a TV writer, you doesn't have to start on TV. You can start on YouTube.
Yeah, I think a lot of people, now that we're all virtually connected, like audiences can discover people, like very niche areas that before maybe the big companies would say it's not worth the risk. But now you can do it yourself on YouTube or whatever. And people are like, okay, let's give this guy a chance, right? So, so that's cool.
Yeah, think about that. If you want to be a filmmaker, you don't have to wait for anyone anymore to tell you that you can. You can make your own films with your telephone, you know. Like we all have the capacity to make things all the time. And we have limitless reasons not to. You know, we're always coming up with excuses. I'm too busy, and my kid is this, and my that is that. And I don't think it takes that much time, you know. And honestly, the reason, this is personal, but the reason that I started doing improv is that I was a lazy writer. I felt like the screen was just like haunting me with its blankness and having nothing on there. But I could take an improv class or do a show in a cafe or something and get on stage, and all of a sudden, like all this stuff was coming out. And it reminded me, like, oh yeah, I've got stuff in me. And then I could go home and I could be like, what were the scenes that I did? And then that was the genesis of writing. So like having an activity or having a friend that you can talk to or a group that you can meet with and just tell stories is a great way to remember and remind yourself that you've got material to write. And so you'll never get blocked because you're just talking to yourself, you know? Like when you're starting with you, with who you are and what you know, then you never run out of content.
So if you could travel back in time and give your 10-year-old self advice, what would you tell them?
Oh, great question. My 10-year-old self. So when I was 10, it was the early mid 80s, really the prime of, you know, new wave music and, you know, Madness and Duran Duran. I'm wearing parachute pants. I think of myself as like a hip hop, you know, I'm a white suburban kid, you know. I would say be yourself, stop trying to be somebody else, and write more. That's what I would say to that kid. I mean, I already told you that it's taken me a long time in my life to publish something, to publish a book at least. And I feel like if I did more writing earlier, that I would have published more things by now. But I'm not disappointed by that. I think that you get where you get when you get there. But I would tell myself to write more, even when it's bad.
Okay, thank you very much, Corey, for being on our show.
Thank you.
It was lots of fun.